Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here. We got some bombshells. Now, first of all, I know that everybody's concerned that the Epstein hearing, got moved to Thursday. We're not quite sure what's going to happen there, when it's going to happen, but I can't imagine them letting him out. Even though when they went in and they cracked his safe, notice this, by the way. You know, I don't understand how this isn't headlines all over. This just further confirms this guy was intelligence, and I'm going to explain that in a second. And I'm so glad that I did that Adnan Khashoggi piece. I'm so sorry about the audio, but it shows you again how American intelligence, Saudi Arabian intelligence, and Israeli intelligence have had a network for years. So the headline to this story is that Epstein had diamonds, piles of cash, and an official passport with his photo, but not his name, listing Saudi Arabia as his home, locked in its safe. Here's Judge, who moves bail hearing to Thursday. Let me explain what this really means, all right? Because we're gonna watch a NBC video on the matter. First of all, here's the real details. That passport was issued in the 80s from a foreign country. Notice that's not in the headline. So, if it wasn't issued by Saudi Arabia, but it had a Saudi Arabian residence, and by the way, Epstein's face on it, but a separate identity. So he has a separate identity in the 80s, and he's issued a foreign passport, more than likely an Israeli passport, because that network's been moving and shaking for years, the Iran-Contra network. In that same time period, think about this. All right, so Epstein has that passport in there with a Saudi Arabian address. What does that tell you? This should be headlines everywhere. Again, we're gonna go to NBC because they reiterate it twice, and good for them. But it should be on the front page of it. This guy, how does he have a foreign passport issued by another country? Tell me that. How does Acosta, when he's in the Trump transition team, allegedly say, when he's asked about Epstein, he was told it was above his pay grade and that he was intelligence? And then when he's asked in the press conference, he refuses to answer the question, and he ends it with, "Don't fall too deep down the rabbit hole." All right? So let's get the details.
A new and rather remarkable piece of information now that we're getting out from these prosecutors. Just walk us through one more time on this passport issue, because I want to be sure that we're real clear about it. This was an old passport that had Epstein's face on it, but under a different name, according to prosecutors, right?
That's right. And again, it's a very old passport from the 1980s. It's expired. They did not reveal what country issued the passport. They said that it is a photo of Jeffrey Epstein, but a different name, and that it shows his residence as Saudi Arabia. They didn't.
Let's just stop it there. She's going to go on to say, oh, they didn't explain why. What does that tell you? How does this guy have access to all this money, a private island, all these different people, a network that spans far beyond what you're being told in the news? It's downplayed that, remember, when they did get him in that offender, and no one asked Acosta about that at the press conference. Really bothered me that nobody asked Acosta, hey, wait a minute, the deal that got cut was with a 16-year-old. He didn't have to register in, I don't know, how many states again? 30. He didn't have to register in 30, including New Mexico, where he owned properties. Give me a break. Give me a break. So let's go to this woman, because she's like, I've been covering this for a year. She's been covering it for 10 years or more, but I've never seen or heard anything like this.
Go any further to say what the significance of that was. It was just kind of put in there. The judge obviously intrigued, and it raised some questions. Those questions don't seem to have been answered in this hearing. So I think it has a lot of people scratching their heads. I have to tell you, I've been covering this since that incredible, explosive article in the Miami Herald last year. I've never heard Saudi Arabia come up in the conversation.
Well, let me tell you something. There's a reason that I've been talking about Saudi Arabia. Because when you look at this guy and the time period that he starts on the come up, and when you want to show people how international intelligence operations work, we could talk about 9/11 for a second if you want. Most of the hijackers, 17 out of the 19, came through Saudi Arabia, through a consulate. And J. Michael Springman, who had worked there previously, said that he was told that it was really a moving and shaking base to bring people in for intelligence. The Central Intelligence Agency was running that. See the Saudi Arabian CIA connection there? And then you have Israeli operatives all over. If you go down about a month and a half ago, I do a really great breakdown on the dancing Israelis and the FOIA. I've got to do a follow-up up to that, right? And then here at home, you're running all sorts of drills. All sorts of drills. The National Reconnaissance Office is running drills deep in Cheyenne Mountain where hijackings are taking place all over. And then you have Pakistani intelligence in there too. So again, Jeffrey Epstein has a foreign passport from the 80s issued by a foreign nation, and I doubt it was Saudi Arabia. I would more than likely guess that it was Israel, and hopefully we're going to get some kind of a press conference at least on Thursday after the bail hearing. They can't let him out. There's no way they're going to let him out. 100%. If they let him out, our justice system has completely failed us, and it's failed us in the past, but this really is the litmus test, is it not? So they find that with the Saudi Arabian address from the 80s with an alias, by the way. So now we're going to start talking about the aliases of Jeffrey Epstein. When he rolled in other countries, who was he known as? Who is this guy that got a job as a Dartmouth professor with no college degree? Who is this guy that got hooked up with Lady Rothschild and Robert Maxwell, Israeli super spy, Ghislaine's, Robert Maxwell's daughter, Ghislaine? Who is this guy? Who the F is this guy who was allowed to not only molest countless children? If you watch the earlier part of that video we just referenced, they talk about the hundreds, if not thousands, of inappropriate images in the safe of what appear to be, again, underage girls. Now, they're not saying whether or not any of those pictures are of prominent individuals. Let's go with that angle as well. More than likely, they are, at least some of them. If they're in this safe, they're not just his pleasure hoard. They're his blackmail hoard, his physical copies of these, which I would imagine there are some in safety deposit boxes. There are probably some that have even been digitized and put onto thumb drives, etc., etc., etc. This is just one of his residences. I'm sure that they are strewn about. I'm sure this guy's got a lot of heat and blackmail on a bunch of people. And let me tell you, if you get to those upper echelons of D.C., there's a good chance you're not a good guy. And maybe if you cavorted with this mother trucker over here, whether you were in the entertainment industry, in the corporate industry, or in the political industry, because that's an industry too, baby, might have some blackmail on you. After all, it sure looks like, hey, what's going on? He had I can't say it enough. I can't say it enough. He had a foreign passport in there from the 80s with an alias on it, where he had a residence in Saudi Arabia. Now, again, we have been covering this for a very long time, and no one's ever talked about him ever owning property in Saudi Arabia. And again, this is issued not by the United States, and I doubt it was Saudi Arabia who issued him this 80s passport. I'm going to think it's Israel. I'm going to go out on a limb with all the other connections, with the Maxwell Mossad connection, and say, wow, this is huge, and it should be front page everywhere. Everywhere. And we'll see where the media goes with this. There's plenty of sensational nonsense stories out there. I saw one today where some 21-year-old model, and by the way, I'm not trying to discount her experience or that she's unimportant or that we don't need more people to come out that Epstein tried to abuse them. She was of age at the time and she ran away and there was a toy involved, et cetera, et cetera. It's just that the media likes to focus on those sensational stories of how people got away from Epstein or whatever. No, we need to go deeper into the intelligence ties that we now are having all but confirmed right in our faces publicly. Do you understand? That's what we need to do. So, folks, if you're not subscribed and you like this material, we're going to be doing updates all over the place. I think that, we have one of the number one resources for Epstein research, Nexium, R. Kelly. We do global politics, DARPA, We do walk and talks, AMAs, myself and Dylan Avery. Remember Loose Change? I'm one of the guys that brought you Loose Change. Check out my films, Loose Change Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Shade the Motion Picture, and Invisible Empire. They're on one of my playlists. Share this stuff. It's the only way it's going to get out there. There's Sir Edward Heath, former UK Prime Minister in the 70s, who was labeled a serial predator by many people and would have had to answer to Scotland Yard due to Operation Conifer had he still been alive. We cover it all here. So again, please subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. I have a GoFundMe going. It's going for a couple more days. We actually hit the goal. I can't thank you guys enough. In fact, I did thank about 95% of you on the 25K AMA. We are on the road to 30K. When we hit 30K, we can do so much more with this channel. So once again, guys, I thank you, and I will see you all on the flip side.